All right, you are live. January 1, 2025. Let's do this. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Met Museum. The Met Museum in New York City. It's one of the most epic location, most epic architecture. You go over there, you look over the chairs, and you are like, wow, this is beautiful. This seems like a place where you would store really aesthetic art. A place that you just go and you are like, okay, I get it. I am ready for the vibe that this place is gonna have. Yeah, look at it. It's grand. It's aesthetic. It's like a palace, and it's perfect for keeping medieval Renaissance art. Look at this. Look at this. This massive construction just for this one piece. Hmm. Wow. Okay. Metropolitan Museum of Art, commonly known as the Met, is an encyclopedic art museum located in New York City. Encyclopedic art museum. Met is situated on Fifth Avenue along the Museum Mile on the eastern edge of Central Park in Manhattan's Upper East Side. It is the largest art museum in the Americas and the fourth largest in the world by floor area, covering approximately 2 million square feet. I just went to the Vancouver Art Gallery, which which is tiny as compared to this, but it also has a really grand, let's say, really grand vibe, but not this grand. You just look at this photo and you get to understand that hey, this is just a common area. There's literally no art over here. This is just a common area, and just the common area is so big. And when you look at this, just for this one art piece, you have this massive location. You kind of get the understanding like how big this museum is. It is the largest art museum. Let's close this. Okay. Largest art museum in the Americas and the fourth largest in the world by floor area, covering approximately 2 million square feet. In 2023, it welcomed 5.36 million visitors, making it the most visited museum in the United States and the fifth most visited art museum globally. Actually, I'm curious, which is the most visited art museum globally? Are they going to say something that involves what was the thing? The Art Basel, sorry, the Swiss Museum, Art Basel. Let's see. The Met was founded in 1870 by a group of Americans in Paris. Hmm. The Met was founded in 1870 by a group of Americans in Paris, aiming to create a national institution for art education and appreciation in the United States. First acquisition. Its first purchase was a Roman sarcophagus in 1870. Roman sarcophagus. The museum opened to the public in 1872 at 681 Fifth Avenue and moved to its current location in 1880. Okay, after 8 years. The main building's iconic Beaux Arts facade, beautiful arts facade. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Hmm. Hmm. Beaux Arts facade was completed in 1902. 1902. Okay. So 20 years, like almost 30 years after they actually opened the museum. Designed by Richard Morris Hunt, subsequent expansions were designed by notable architects like McKim, Mead, and White, and Kevin Roche, John Dinklew, and Associates. The Met's permanent collection, which exceeds 2 million works, is divided into 17 curatorial departments. Ancient Near Eastern art. Ancient Near Eastern art. Over 7,000 pieces from the Neolithic period to late antiquity, including Sumerian, Hit- Hittite, and Assyrian artifacts. Egyptian art, the largest collection outside Egypt, with over 26,000 pieces spanning from the Paleolithic era to the Ptolemaic era. This is actually very interesting. Like we read about Egypt, right? Like they are working on this museum called GEM. The full form is Global Egyptian Museum. I think so. Global Egyptian Museum, but that's a cool name, GEM. I think they're working on something like this, but due to political instability, it's actually not on the timeline to actually be built and opened when it was planned. And this is kind of one of the reasons why UK, why Europe, specifically the art places like France, Spain, UK, and in US you could have San Francisco, New York, and specifically the Met. They might hold and maybe take better care of your history than the country themselves, because the country themselves, they might not have the right infrastructure. So that is very interesting. Like, what makes more sense? Does it make more sense to keep? It does make sense to, it doesn't make sense to just take all your art because hey, we are just better. No. I think that helps in tourism, that helps in understanding the history better if people actually travel to Egypt and look at all the Egyptian collection in Egypt. That makes sense. But they also understand that okay, they don't have the infrastructure, the museum infrastructure, the network. It's a lot of network effects in the art world. It is a lot of just museum infrastructure. The political stability does matter because you kind of have to allocate a lot of capital towards this museum and making sure that the money is being used in the right way. In artistic world, sometimes you just overprice everything. You are not too logical. You're not running it as a running it as a running it as a very efficient operation. It's not just business, right? It's art. So you kind of have to have an understanding of taste, of design, but also not overpay for everything. Also make sure people are operating on a specific timeline, on the right timeline. So it's very interesting balance. This is a very interesting balance. Like what amount of art, what amount of national art should be stored with someone with a massive infrastructure like the Met versus in your country itself where it belongs and where it also would attract tourists and better understand the history of the country. Hmm. But it's again similar, right? Like someone when they go to Met, they just go to this one massive museum, and if they're really into this entire thing, they can just get a quick intro, a quick 101 into every single, let's say, period of history around the world. And then that actually piques the curiosity that, oh shit, so okay, I saw some stuff in Egyptian that was really cool. What if I know what if I now actually go to Egypt and check that out? So I think this also works. Like these main massive museum locations like the Met, in UK you have the London Museum, London Historical Museum and stuff like that. People usually travel to these main centers. They usually go to, this is one of the top tourist attractions over there. So people would go there, they would check it out, spend one day over there. That's like their intro into everything history. And if something piques their curiosity, then they would book a flight and be like, oh, I actually want to now travel that country because I really like their history. So both are important. Yeah. The largest collection outside Egypt with over 26,000 pieces spanning from the Paleolithic era to the Ptolemaic era. Greek and Roman art includes monumental sculptures, wall paintings, and artifacts like the Monte Leon chariot. Hmm. Monte Leon chariot. That is really cool. So in Perplexity, I wish we had a feature like this. Like I could just open a bunch of threads over here. Like, okay, I what if I can just mark this that hey, I would like to come back over here. Yeah, that's what I want because there's so many rabbit holes we can go deep into. There should be like quick summary. Like I just click over here and I understand that oh, what is Sumerian? Just give me a quick thing over here. Interesting. Includes monumental sculptures, wall paintings, and artifacts like the Monte Leon chariot. European paintings, approximately 2,500 paintings featuring arts by Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Impressionist masters. The world's largest collection of American painting, sculpture, and decorative arts. This makes sense. Like, if you are the best American museum, then people would definitely want their art to be featured in your museum. With 24 period rooms, a vast collection of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Indian, and Southeast Asian art. Islamic, one of the world's finest collections showcasing over 5 millennia of artistic production from the Arab lands, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, and later South Asia. Modern contemporary art, nearly 12,000 pieces, including works by Warhol, Rothko, and his strong Cubism collection, Costume Institute, a curated collection of fashionable dress from the 15th century to the present with the Met Gala as its primary funding source. Met Gala. That makes sense. Met Gala. So Met Gala is by the Met. Interesting. And what's the full form Met again? Metropolitan Museum of Art. Metropolitan Metropolitan Museum of Art. I've heard people call it MoMA as well. The Met. Interesting. Some people call it MoMA. Some people call it the Met. Interesting. Islamic art, modern, contemporary, nearly 12,000 pieces, including works by Warhol, Rothko, and strong Cubism collection. Cubism was started by Picasso, I believe. He started or he made it popular. Musical instruments, an encyclopedic collection of instruments from around the world, antique weapons and armor from various cultures and period. The Cloisters, a branch of the Met dedicated to medieval art, located in Fort Tryon Park, Upper Manhattan. Notable exhibits and features: the Cloisters, the Met Brewer, a space for modern and contemporary art housed in the former Whitney Museum building until 2020. Temple of Dender, an Egyptian temple, the only one in the Western Hemisphere gifted to the US by Egypt. What? The Cloisters, a notable exhibits, a branch of the Met dedicated to medieval art located in Fort Tryon Park, Upper Manhattan. The Met Brewer, a space for modern contemporary art housed in the former Whitney Museum building until 2020. Temple of Dendur, an Egyptian temple, the only one in the Western Hemisphere gifted to the US by Egypt. Special exhibitions. The Met regularly features exhibits by living artists like Cecily Brown's Death and the Maid. The Met regularly features exhibits by living artists like Cecily Brown's Death and the Maid. Hmm. The museum operates on a pay what you wish policy with a suggested donation of $25 per person. Pay what you wish policy. Accessibility. The Met is committed to making art accessible to everyone with extensive educational programs and resources. Hmm. That is really cool. Stands as a testament to human creativity and cultural heritage, offering a journey through time and across continents through its vast and diverse collection. That is really cool. That is really cool. I feel really bad that I've been outside MoMA so many times, but I've never been inside. Okay, so this time we need to go inside. What is this? What is this Temple of Tinder? Tinder. Wow, a Temple of Tinder. Look at this. Look at all the art outside. I think I've seen like I was searching up some Egyptian stone wall paintings, and I've seen all the stuff over there. So they literally picked it up from Egypt and they placed it over here. Wow. Wow. This is actually crazy. This is how it originally was, and they cut it out somehow, somehow placed it somewhere and shipped it to MoMA. That is crazy. They seem to have fixed some things. Like, look at this. This is the original one. It's messed up, and they fixed it. I think this is because they want people to check it out, and this was like structurally weak, and they wanted to make sure that it doesn't just fall on people. Wow, wow. Yeah, they have built a structure to support it. Hmm. that is a, this is also art. This is also art. Like if you have a thing which is like hundreds of years, this might be thousands of year old. If you have a thing that's thousands of years old, you kind of want to show it, but you are also now worried about people not getting hurt. So how do you carefully make the structure strong, but also not take away from its original form? Make sure it looks authentic, but also fix it so it looks better and also structurally sound. Wow. Okay. Ancient Egyptian temple built around 15 BC. Wow. Built around 15 BC, 2000 years ago, during the reign of Emperor Augustus to honor the goddess Isis and the defied Nubian brothers Pedisi and Pihor. The temple was originally located in Nubia near the city of Dendur, on the west bank of the Nile River in southern Egypt. This region was a key trade point between sub Saharan Africa and Egypt, known for its exotic goods like ivory and gold. Augustus commissioned the temple as a peace offering to the Egyptians after his conquest of Egypt in 31 BC. The temple's construction likely took place between 20 to 15 BC, a time of peace in Roman ruled Egypt. Hmm. Oh, 31 BC, we were still like doing the opposite thing. Okay. So he took over Egypt in 31 BC, and then he built it around 20 to 15 BC, which is 15 years later as a peace offering. Huh. Okay. A time of peace in Roman ruled Egypt. In the 1960s, the construction of the Aswan High Dam threatened to submerge the temple under Lake Nasser. In 1960s, the construction of the Aswan High Dam threatened to submerge the temple under Lake Nasser. As part of an international effort led by UNESCO, the temple was disassembled and gifted to the United States in 1965. It was awarded to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City in 1967. The temple was reconstructed in a specially designed wing at the Met, which was named the Sackler Wing until 2021, when the museum decided to drop the Sackler name due to the family's association with the opioid opioid crisis. The temple's exhibit opened to the public in 1978. Wow, the Sackler Wing. I mean, that's a problem, right? Like, you put anybody's name over there, that person, either that person or his great grandfathers or great grandson, either the generation up or down, might have done something bad, and then you are messed up. Family's association with opioid crisis. The temple's exhibit opened to the public in 1978. Architectural features. The temple is made of Aeolian sandstone and measures approximately 4.9 meters by 6.4 by 13. It features relief carvings originally painted in bright colors depicting Augustus as a pharaoh interacting with various Egyptian deities. So this is Augustus was talking with a deity. Interesting. Hmm. It features relief carvings originally painted in bright colors depicting Augustus as a pharaoh interacting with various Egyptian deities. The temple's relocation to the Met has made it one of the museum's most beloved exhibits, offering a glimpse into ancient Egyptian architecture and culture. It also symbolizes the relationship between Egypt and the United States. The temple has been the backdrop for numerous cultural events at the Met, including musical performances ranging from choral music to jazz and indie rock. Wow. The temple has been the backdrop for numerous cultural events at the Met, including musical performances ranging from choral music to jazz and indie rock, enhancing its role as a living cultural space. This is so cool. This is so cool. Yeah, like I think recently they did a concert in front of with the pyramids of Giza at the backdrops. A lot of people flew down to Egypt, and right in front of uh that entire pyramid of Giza space is just like desert, and then you have these pyramids. So they had that as a backdrop, and they had this massive concert, and that looks so good. That looks so good. That looks so good. It looks perfect. It looks perfect. Hmm. The Met has undertaken significant efforts to preserve the temple, including creating a controlled environment to mimic the dry climate of Egypt. Hmm. The Met has taken significant efforts to preserve the temple, including creating a controlled environment to mimic the dry climate of Egypt. So what do? They make sure there's no humidity over there. Otherwise, this this thing might break down. That's interesting. Hmm. The temple's display includes a reflecting pool to represent the Nile and a sloping wall to mimic the cliffs of the original location. Hmm. A sloping wall. I'm guessing this is what they're talking about. Interesting. Interesting. A sloping wall to mimic the cliffs of the original location. The Temple of Denver has been the subject of various exhibitions and digital content, including a light display titled Color the Temple that revealed its original colors using polychromatic light. Testament to the architectural and cultural heritage of ancient Egypt, now accessible to millions of visitors at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'm actually really curious. Tell me the story. Sackler's Sackler family's association with the opioid crisis is a complex and contentious narrative that spans decades involving their ownership of Purdue Pharma, manufacturer of Oxycontin, and their role in the epidemic. Exacerbating the epidemic. Full committee hearing on the role of Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family in the opioid epidemic. Hmm. The ownership of Purdue Pharma, the manufacturer of Oxycontin, and their role in exacerbating the epidemic. Purdue Pharma and Oxycontin. The Sackler family, through Purdue Pharma, introduced Oxycontin in the mid 90s, marketing it as a less addictive and safer alternative to other painkillers. All right, so we have a movie on this, right? We have a movie with Emily Blunt, The Hustlers. Hustlers? The Hustlers. I think something like that, right? Marketing as a less addictive and safer alternative to painkillers. I think that movie kind of helps you understand what actually happened, how this entire thing happened, and also kind of makes sense like why something like this, how something like this could happen in a company and how people might react to it. What would lead these really smart people to go down this route? This drug, a formulation of the potent opioid oxycodone, became a blockbuster, generating billions in revenue for Purdue Pharma. They employed aggressive marketing strategies, including paying doctors to endorse the product, promoting its safety and efficacy with unsubstantiated claims, and expanding its use beyond cancer pain to chronic pain management. This was the problem. These tactics were instrumental in driving the increase in opioid prescriptions in the United States. Legal and ethical concerns. Despite early warnings about the drug's addictive potential, the Sacklers downplayed these risks, leading to widespread misuse and addiction. In 2007, Purdue Pharma executives pleaded guilty to federal misbranding charges, but the Sackler family members themselves did not face criminal charges at that time. Hmm. Financial maneuvering. Amid growing concerns about the opioid epidemic, the Sackler family withdrew nearly $11 billion from Purdue Pharma between 2008 and 2018, placing these funds in family trusts and holding companies. This move was seen as an attempt to shield their wealth from potential lawsuits. Hmm. Amid growing concerns about the opioid epidemic, the Sackler family withdrew nearly 11 billion from Purdue Pharma between 2008 and 2018, placing these funds in family trusts and holding companies. This move was seen as an attempt to shield their wealth from potential lawsuits. In 2019, Purdue Pharma filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy due to thousands of lawsuits related to the opioid crisis. The Sacklers offered to return 4.3 billion to the company's bankruptcy estate in exchange for immunity from opioid related claims. The settlement was initially accepted but faced legal challenges. The Sacklers offered to return 4.3 billion to the company's bankruptcy estate in exchange for immunity from opioid related claims. The settlement was initially accepted but faced legal challenges. In June 24, the US Supreme Court overturned the bankruptcy settlement, ruling that the bankruptcy court did not have the authority to grant the Sacklers immunity from lawsuits since they were not named debtors in the bankruptcy case. Did not have the authority to grant the Sacklers immunity from lawsuits since they were not named debtors in the bankruptcy case. This decision left the settlement funds intended for state and local governments to combat the opioid crisis in limbo. This decision left the settlement funds intended for state and local governments to combat the opioid crisis in limbo. The Sackler family's actions have been widely criticized, with their names being removed from various institutions they have previously supported. They have been described as the most evil family in America and the worst drug dealers in history due to their roles in the opioid epidemic. The opioid crisis, fueled in part by Purdue Pharma's marketing of Oxycontin, has led to over 450,000 deaths in the US over 2 decades. The Sackler family's legacy is now marred by the association with this public health disaster, with ongoing legal battles and public scrutiny. The story is one of immense wealth, corporate influence, and tragic legacy of contributing to one of the most devastating public health crises in modern American history. Their actions have led to significant legal, financial, and reputational consequences, with the full extent of their accountability still unfolding in the courts and public opinion. Hmm. What are the major events in the history of the Met since its inception? Let's see. Has a rich history marked by several significant events since its inception in 1870. Foundation in early years. Founded on April 13, 1870 by a group of Americans in Paris, aiming to create a national institution. This is also very interesting. Like again, it's very interesting. Like every time you see something great and you see who built it, it's very interesting to know that what was their inspiration, because that's where this comes from. Either it's a better version of it or it's just done in a better way. It's all remixing of the ideas. Like they went to Paris, they looked at all these grand old museums. Like this is not the oldest museum. Met is not the oldest museum. It was only started in 1870. There were museums that were built by the Medici family in 1400, 1500s. There are like other massive museums in Spain, France, Spain, Paris, UK, and they went there, they got inspiration, and they built with more money, more resources, and yeah, very interesting. A group of Americans in Paris aiming to create a national institution for art education and appreciation in the United States. It opened to the public in the Dodworth building at 681 Fifth Avenue in 1872. Museum's first acquisition was a Roman sarcophagus, marking the beginning of its new collection. Moved to its current location in 1880, where it has since expanded significantly. The main building's iconic Beaux Arts facade was completed in 1902, designed by Richard Morris Hunt. Subsequent expansions, acquisition of notable works: 1907 acquired a work by Auguste Renoir, and in 1910 it became the first public institution in the world to acquire a work of art by Henri Matisse. 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 Hmm. It became the first public institution in the world to acquire a work of art by Henri Matisse. The ancient Egyptian hippopotamus statuette, now the museum's unofficial mascot William, entered the collection in 1917. The cloisters, a branch dedicated to medieval art, opened to the public on May 10, 1938, on land donated by John D. Rockefeller Jr. Temple of Dender, 1967. Ancient Egyptian temple was awarded to the Met in 1967 by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Was awarded to the Met by President Lyndon B. Johnson. It was disassembled, shipped, and reconstructed in a specially designed wing at the museum. Wow, this is its own story. Like how, yeah, this is a very interesting story. A beautiful piece of history, 2,000-year old history, lying in Egypt. Then they make a dam over there to improve the water situation. They know that's going to flood. This is totally going to be damaged. So we got to, but this is history. We got to preserve it. So they disassemble it and they are like, who should we give it to? Where should we keep it? They give it to US and the president is like, okay, who's going to take it? They give it to Met. Hmm. The Costume Institute, 1937. Independent entity formed in 1937 by Irene Leveson and Aline Bernstein. It merged with the Met in 1946. Met Gala, initially known as the Costume Institute Benefit, was established in 1948 to raise funds for the Costume Institute. It has since become one of the most prestigious events in the fashion and art world. Fashion and art world. Modern and contemporary art. The Met established its Department of Contemporary Arts in 1967 with curator Henry Geldzahler, arguing for the integration of modern art into the museum's collection. The Met established its Department of Contemporary Arts. The Met established its Department of Contemporary Arts in 1967 with curator Henry Geldzahler, arguing for the integration of modern art into the museum's collection. Hmm. The Met Brewer, a space dedicated to modern and contemporary art, opened in 2016 in the former Whitney Museum building but closed in 2020. Hmm. The Met has undergone numerous expansions and renovations, including the Robert Lehman Wing, the American Wing, the Michael C. Rockefeller Wing, and Leela Atkinson Wallace Wing, and the Henry R. Kravis Wing. 150th anniversary. The Met celebrated its 150th anniversary in 2020 with a series of events and exhibitions, including Making the Met 1870 to 2020, which was temporarily paused due to global events. That's actually crazy. Like their 150th anniversary happened during the pandemic. Open Access Initiative introduced its Open Access Initiative, making high resolution images of public domain works in its collection freely available for use. This is really cool. This is really cool. Whoever's leading the Mets, yeah, whoever's leading Met and their vision of open access and how this art should be free and pay what you wish kind of service, I think that is really cool. That is really cool. These events highlight the Met's growth from a modest institution to one of the world's most renowned art museums, with a collection spanning over 5,000 years of art from across the globe. Hmm. Yeah, we want to look into this. The unofficial mascot, the ancient Egyptian hippopotamus statuette. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hmm. It's tiny. Khanacademy.org. This is tiny. Hmm, interesting. William the Hippo, an ancient Egyptian faience statuette, has become an iconic and beloved figure in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Here's the story of how William entered the museum's collection and became its unofficial mascot. Discovery and acquisition was discovered in May 1910 by Sayyid Pasha Kashaba in a shaft associated with the tomb chapel of the nomarch Senbi II at Mir, an ancient Egyptian cemetery, hmm. Become an iconic and beloved figure at the Met. Here is the story of how William entered the museum's collection. William was discovered in May 1910 by Sayyid Pasha Kashaba in a shaft associated with the tomb chapel of the nomarch Senbi II at Mir, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. The statuette, along with other burial materials, was acquired by the Met in 1917, donated by philanthropist Edward Harkness. Physical description: William is a small, bright blue faience hippopotamus measuring approximately 11.2 centimeter in height and 20 centimeter length. He is decorated with black paint to enhance his eyes with the vegetal motifs like lotus flowers, buds, and leaves symbolizing regeneration and rebirth. Hmm, really cool. Really cool. Symbolism and purpose. In ancient Egyptian culture, hippopotamus figurines were common in Middle Kingdom tombs. They were believed to help ensure the rebirth of the deceased. They were believed to help ensure the rebirth of the deceased, with the blue gaze and lotus flowers invoking the marshes of the Nile. Hmm. Help ensure the rebirth of the deceased, with the blue gaze. Hmm. Interesting. With the blue gaze and lotus flowers invoking the marshes of the Nile, essential to life in ancient Egypt. However, actual hippopotamuses were feared for their destructive power, and it's thought that William's legs were deliberately broken to reduce the threat he posed to the deceased in the afterlife. Mm. Right, right, right. So his legs are reconstructed. This is the original, it seems like. Interesting. They have, I believe others are kind of like you go to Met, you go to the Met gift shop, the place where you can just buy stuff, and that's where you get this. But this is the original. This is the original. Wow, very interesting. Actual hippopotamuses were feared for their destructive power, and it's thought that William's legs were deliberately broken to reduce the threat he posed to the deceased in the afterlife. William received his nickname in 1931 from a satirical article in the British magazine Punch. Captain H. M. Raleigh, the author, described how his family revered a color print of the hippopotamus, giving it the name William. He published the story in the bulletin the same year, and the name stuck, making William an informal mascot of the museum. Mascot. Mascot of the museum. Popularity and exhibitions. Quickly became a favorite among museum visitors, leading to his status as an unofficial mascot. In 2017 to 18, the Met celebrated the centenary of Williams' acquisition with a special display titled Conversation Between Two Hippos, juxtaposing him with a 20th century ceramic hippo by Carl Walters. He's appeared on various museum merchandise, including tote bags, ties, and erasers, further cementing his status as a beloved figure. Shared widely, making him a symbol of the museum's connection to ancient Egyptian art and culture. Very interesting. The cloisters. Let's see. The Roman sarcophagus would be interesting. Tell me the story. Hmm. This was the first piece, Carol O'More Moran Gallery. Hmm. Cubism, the Leonard A. Lauder collection. Oh wow. This is the Nile River, dry climate, Temple of Dendur. Really cool. Began its illustrious journey with the acquisition of its first object, a Roman marble sarcophagus, on November 20, 1870. Significant event marked the inception of the museum's vast and diverse collection, which now spans over 5,000 years of art from across the globe. The sarcophagus was discovered in 1863 at Tarsus in Sicilia, no, Cilicia, modern day southern Turkey. Cilicia. It was a gift from J. Abdo Debas, the American vice consul at Tarsus, who initially intended to present it to the United States government as a token of goodwill. However, upon the recommendation of J. Augustus Johnson, the American consul at Beirut, Syria, now Beirut, Lebanon, oh, Debas decided to donate it to the newly formed Met, Metropolitan Museum of Art. The transportation of sarcophagus from Tarsus to the United States was a challenging endeavor. A strong protective crate was built to safeguard the delicately carved sides during the journey. Delicately carved sides of the during the journey. Hmm. 16 buffalo were employed to pull a wagon bearing the crate to the port of Mersin. 16 buffalo were employed. When they say employed, it sounds like, oh yeah, 16 buffaloes were like, hey guys, come over here, I'll pay you 10 bucks each. Like, go to the port of Mersin, where it was loaded onto the USS Richmond, a US Navy frigate, for its transatlantic voyage. The sarcophagus arrived at the Philadelphia Navy Yard on October 24, 1871. Hmm. Dated to the early 3rd century AD, is an example of Roman funerary art. It features garlands of oak leaves, a Medusa head, wild animals, and other ancient gods, common funerary imagery of the time. The blank square on the front indicates where an inscription of the deceased's name would go, suggesting that this was an unsold piece of inventory in its day. Oh, oh, right here. Interesting. Interesting. Roman funerary art. The blank square on the front indicates where an inscription of the deceased's name would go, suggesting that this was an unsold piece of inventory in its day. At the time of acquisition, the US was experiencing a period of great expansion under President Ulysses Grant. The first railroad to the Pacific coast had just opened, and Alaska had become a US territory. American diplomats stationed in the Near East, like Debas and Johnson, were actively involved in archaeology and collecting antiquities. Antiquities. The sarcophagus remains a centerpiece in the Met's galleries of Greek and Roman art, symbolizing the museum's commitment to preserving and sharing cultural heritage. In 1876, the trustees of the Met honored Debas for his gift by awarding him a fellowship in perpetuity to the museum. With its accession number 70.1 holds a special place in the history of the Met, not only for its first acquisition, but also a testament to the museum's early efforts to establish itself as a repository of art and culture. Its journey from Tarsus to New York City encapsulates the spirit of exploration and diplomacy and the desire to create a national institution for art education and appreciation in the United States. Really cool, really cool. What fellowship do the Met Museum? Let's see. Let's see. Also, while we get the answer, let's get our charger. All right, we are back, and let's see. Hmm, this is tempered ender. It seems like it's a very significant thing. Like if it's commonly showing up in the history of Met, it seems like here they are trying to reconstruct or fix the painting, fix the art. It's so interesting how to fix the art because, yeah, again, the same thing. You don't, you want to keep it authentic, but you also want to make sure it looks good. Hmm. Has awarded fellowship in perpetuity to several individuals over its history. Here are the known recipients. 1876, the trustees of the Met honored Debas for his gift of the Roman sarcophagus, the museum's first acquisition, by awarding him a fellowship in perpetuity to the museum. Bobby Jones, the famous golfer Bobby Jones, was awarded a fellowship in perpetuity in 1930, recognizing his contributions to the sport and his role in founding the Masters tournament. Hmm. Give me some interesting facts and stories about the Met. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see what we have. First acquisition, Roman marble sarcophagus, decorated with intricately carved garlands. American vice consul at Turkey, William the Hippo. We got that. Oh, this keeps coming up. This keeps coming up. Alexander McQueen. Whew. Alexander McQueen. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. Temple of Tinder. Okay. The Met's first home. Originally opened in Dodworth Building. Architectural evolution. Designed by original Fifth Avenue structure, designed by Calvert Vaux and Jacob Ray Mold, is barely visible today due to numerous expansions. However, a glimpse of the original west facade can still be seen in the Robert Lehman wing. Residential floral artist. Since 2003, Remco van Vlie, a Dutch florist, has been Met's in-house resident florist, creating towering floral displays for the Great Hall and other events. Wow. Remco van Vlie, Met's oldest piano. The museum houses the world's oldest surviving piano, dating back to 1720. Hmm. Created by Bartolomeo Cristofori The Italian inventor of the piano. The Italian inventor of the piano, created by world's oldest surviving piano. Armor and weaponry. The Met's arms and armor department includes impressive examples of battle gear such as Henry 5678, 8's armor likely worn during his last military campaign in 1544. Fashion. Costume Institute boasts over 33,000 historic, contemporary, and culturally significant articles of clothing and accessories from five continents and seven centuries. The cloisters. The Met's branch in Fort Tryon Park, known as the Cloisters, houses medieval art, architecture, and artifacts. It features three gardens based on medieval gardening traditions, including the Bonnefond Cloister Garden with nearly 300 species of plants. Recent acquisitions include the Mantuan Roundel by Gianmarco Cavalli, a rediscovered early Renaissance masterpiece, and the archive of photographer James Van der Zee, chronicling black life in New York City during the Harlem Renaissance. Whew, Harlem Renaissance. The Met has had its share of security challenges, including the theft of a 23-pound marble sculpture of the Greek god Hermes in 1979, which was later returned with a heart carved onto its visage. Visage's face, right? What? These facts and stories highlight Met's rich history, its diverse collection, and the unique experiences it offers to visitors, making it a cultural treasure trove in the heart of New York City. This is so interesting. I think this is it, right? Like, how do you make people care about an art piece? Give it a rich history. Not only either it should be the oldest piano in the world, so people will be curious about it, or something really interesting happened with it, like something very weird, like uh, yeah, like stealing of that art, or in case of Mona Lisa, again stealing of the art. I know there was a movie, I forgot what movie this was, but in that movie, basically there was an artist who had her painting in a museum, and then they intentionally create a robbery around that piece just so that that piece has more history, just so that that piece has an interesting story that gets people talking about it, that oh shit, and then in this fancy museum they had so much security, but still they were able to, these robbers were able to go in, get this piece of art, and yeah, and then that's so bad, security so bad, and then people start talking about it, then everybody in the contemporary world knows about this incident, this piece of art, and that's how you become relevant. Interesting. Look at this, look at this. What did they do to the, what is the heart story? We want to look into that heart story. Visage. What was this? Share of security challenges, including the theft of a 23-pound marble sculpture of the Greek god Hermes in 1979, which was later returned with a heart carved onto its visage. Interesting. The Met has experienced several security challenges over its history. The heist, February 10, 1979, during a change of guard in the Cypriot Gallery corridor, a 2,500-year-old marble head of Hermes was stolen from its wooden pedestal. Hmm. From its wooden pedestal. This theft took place during a brief 10-minute window when the gallery was left unsupervised from 3:15 p.m. to 3:25 p.m. Wow, wow. Now they all know that hey, there are security guards and they have a shift. They have a they have a change of guard, and there's a window of time, and now everybody knows that hey, if you want to go for a heist, you have to optimize for that window. That window might be just be 10 minutes or even shorter, and you got to optimize for that window. Crazy. I think I watched another heist movie, which was I was trying to learn French, so I was just watching a bunch of French movies, and I came across this one movie, which was again heist museum, something like that. So this guy, He just goes to that museum every single day. He is trying to keep a track of like, okay, what is that time when there's a change of guard, and he slowly prepares for that because he just has that 10-minute window. So he had actually prepared where he made a hole in the wall or hole in the glass or something, and early on. So I think every single day there was a change of guard, and he had the 10-minute window. He would start by just carving that window and making sure that finally on the day it's ready, he just has to go in. uh, and then he actually goes in and then he steals some paintings. Crazy. Okay, anyways, let's get back. This theft took place during a brief 10-minute window when the gallery was left unsupervised from 3:15 p.m. to 3:25 p.m. The sculpture, valued at 150,000 at the time, was a Herm head, a decorative piece likely depicting the god Hermes, known as the guardian of roads and doorways, the divine messenger, and ironically the god of thieves. It makes sense. This makes a good story. This makes a really good story, and ironically the god of thieves. It's very interesting. I'm really curious, like how the director of Met reacts to something like this. Like, do they give a very professional and business statement that we apologize, this is a breach of our security, and our security has been outsmarted by this thief, and we will take care, we will keep you all updated, stuff like that? Are they like very business operational heavy, or are they like more artistic that, hey, it's really ironic that something like this happened, and this is part of the story, this is how the world works, that is good, that is bad. Like, I'm really curious how the art director or the museum director reacts to something like this. The search. Once the theft was discovered, the entire museum was put on special alert. All areas were thoroughly searched, and everyone leaving the museum had their bags checked. The Met called in assistance from the FBI and the NYPD to help recover the stolen piece. On Valentine's Day, February 14, okay, so 4 days later, on Valentine's Day, February 14, 1979, a mysterious caller contacted a security officer at Rockefeller Center, informing them that the stolen sculpture could be found inside locker number 5514 at Grand Central Terminal. Hmm. Inside locker number 5514 at Grand Central Terminal. Within minutes, detectives from the Midtown North precinct were dispatched to the terminal. Using a pocket knife to break into the locker, the detectives found the sculpture covered by an old piece of white cloth. However, upon its return to the museum, the sculpture had undergone some changes. Small when it was stolen, it had a small heart-shaped mark above its left eye. Upon its return, a new matching heart-shaped mark was carved above its right eye, and the ascension number painted onto the back of the sculpture had been removed. The addition of the second heart-shaped mark has led to speculation about the motives behind the theft. Was it a Valentine's Day gift gone wrong? The identity of the thief or thieves remains unknown, as no one was arrested for the crime despite the locker being tested for fingerprints. That is crazy. That is crazy. First of all, this thief was in your museum. So your CCTV cameras don't work clearly. Number two, the thief was in Grand Central Terminal. So those cameras also don't work. That is crazy. Described the Met as the first major theft in its 110-year history at the time highlights the challenges museums face in securing their vast collections. The story of the Hermes sculpture with its mysterious return and the addition of the heart-shaped marks adds a layer of intrigue to the museum's history, showcasing both the vulnerability and the resilience of cultural institutions in safeguarding their treasures. Where is the heart? Marble. Hmm. Let's see. The heart. I don't see the heart. Is that, is it this? Doesn't look like heart. Interesting. Interesting. I think this would be interesting. Like if we just look into all the thefts that have happened in the Met. Okay, but we had to check out. It features three gardens based on medieval gardening traditions. Oldest piano, recent acquisition. I'm actually curious, what is Harlem Renaissance? What is Harlem Renaissance? Let's see. Pivotal cultural, social, and artistic movement that took place primarily in Harlem, New York during the 1920s and 30s. Hmm. Harlem Renaissance, an era of African Americans' triumph and accomplishments. I believe this is where they came up with the blues music, the jazz music. Hmm. Really nice font. Was a pivotal cultural, social, and artistic movement, timeline approximately from 1918 to 37, centered in Harlem, but also influenced other urban areas in Northeast and Midwest United States. I'm guessing it was Chicago. Cultural explosion, intellectual and cultural revival of African American music, dance, art, fashion, literature, theater, politics, and scholarship. Fueled by the Great Migration, where hundreds of thousands of African Americans moved from the rural South to urban areas in the north seeking better economic opportunities and cultural capital. Hmm. Seeking better economic opportunities and cultural capital. The aftermath of World War One and the social changes it brought, including the need for industrial workers, contributed to the concentration of African American talent in Harlem, was characterized by an overt racial pride, challenging the pervading racism and stereotypes through art, literature, and music. Art, literature, and music. Hmm. Named after Alan Locke's anthology. It symbolized a new era of self determination and group expression for African Americans. The movement encompassed a wide variety of cultural elements from traditional forms to experimental styles like jazz poetry, modernism, and the blues. Writers and poets Langston Hughes, Claude McKay, Zora Neale Hurston, Cullen, and Jean Tomer were among the most influential literary figures. Jazz musicians like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and blues singers like Bessie Smith and Billie Holiday were central to the movement. Hmm. Aaron Douglas, Augusta Savage, and Henry Osawa Tanner contribute significantly to the visual arts. Intellectuals Dubois, Marcus Garvey, and Ellen Locke were key thinkers and activists. The Harlem Renaissance kindled a new black cultural identity celebrating African heritage and challenging white stereotypes. It laid essential groundwork for the civil rights movement by fostering an environment where discussions about race relations could thrive. The movement influenced future generations of African American artists, writers, and musicians, redefining how America and the world viewed African Americans. It was not just a cultural movement, but a profound statement of African American identity, pride, and the quest for equality. It was a time when African Americans seized the opportunity to express themselves freely, creating a legacy that continues to resonate in American culture and beyond. Hmm. Really cool. Really cool. All right. That's the stream. Thank you.